when it's all said and done, it's a much better country than Canada. Today we're doing a pretty strange video, Egypt versus Uganda. As someone who has lived in both of these countries for extended periods of time, I want to put them head to head up against one another in 5 different categories to determine which of the two is the best country to live in long term. If this happens to be your first video of mine, my name is No Limit Eddie. I'm a 24-year-old American who lives and travels abroad full time. On this channel, I share what I learned to hopefully make your journey abroad easier. If that's not interesting to you, drop a like on today's video. All right, let's get into it. The first category we're going to talk about is scenery. All right, if you want to move to a country and live there, you want it to look nice, right? So let's start off with Egypt. Now, my history with Egypt, I've been living there for the past almost 3 years, all right? And right now, I'm in the country of Uganda, however, but I've been living in Egypt for a very long time, and so I know a fair thing about the scenery. Now, when it comes to Egypt, it is mostly desert, okay? A lot of rocks and sand. And that's not the most beautiful thing to stare at. The natural beauty in Egypt is not there, all right, when it comes to that. However, keep in mind, the beauty in Egypt, what I love Egypt for is the cities, right? How beautiful certain cities are designed. So there's these Egyptian billionaires that just battle each other and building their own private cities, okay? The landscaping is beautiful. The way the sidewalks are designed is beautiful. There's malls in there. There's shopping centers in there. It's just beautifully designed cities, okay? And these are in the New Cairo areas, right? And they just look amazing. So that's where the beauty of Egypt comes in at. There is, of course, the old and I got sitting in a time machine beauty as well. The camels walking down the street and the donkeys walking down the street and just feel like you've been transported back into biblical times. There's that side of Egypt as well. But what I like it for, it's the artificial man-made stuff that makes it beautiful. On the other hand, you have Uganda. In Uganda, oh my goodness, it's purely natural beauty, okay? From the animals that you're going to see, when I see the monkeys in my front yard, when I see snails, huge snails, on my gates, when I see frogs and toads hopping around outside of my yard, and just the natural, the chickens walking across the street, just natural beauty. Uganda has it all, okay? From the landscaping to even just the weather. A lot of things in Uganda are beautiful because of just how pure it seems to be. And there is also nice architecture in certain portions of the city, right? Certain portions of the country. When I was in the downtown area, I saw some really nice, big, modern buildings, which I like to see, skylines and things like that. Another thing I like about Uganda, too, is there's a lot of hills. There's so many hills, and then the houses would just be built into the hills. And it just looks nice, too. It is the houses go along with the nature. I don't know, if that makes sense. And I'll try to get some clips of it. It might be hard, but it is the nature and the houses just go along with one another. So Uganda gets this point in my book. Uganda beats Egypt when it comes to scenery. Next category is weather. All right. Now, when you're moving to a location and you're planning on living there for years and years, the weather plays a large portion in how much you actually enjoy that country. So Uganda won the first category of scenery. Now it's weather. All right. Now with Egypt really has 2 seasons: hot, windy. Those are the 2 seasons. All right. So hot seasons is kind of right around now. So April all the way till September. And right after September, it goes into the cold and windy season. All right. And it's kind of like a gradual build up and then gradual build down. So it heats up gradually and then it cools down gradually. But when people think of Egypt, they think it's always hot. It's always warm and sunny. No. It gets windy. I'm talking about super windy to the point where you have sandstorms. You go outside, it looks like you're in Mars, Mad Max. It's just everywhere is gray or everywhere is orange because it's just sand all in the air. By the way, it's Eddie here. It's super loud. I'm in an airport right now, but I just wanted to give you guys a quick message. For those of you guys who are okay, I'm in an airport, like I said. How do you travel? How do you do the things that you're doing without ever talking about going to work, without ever talking about having to clock in or clock out for your job or have to ask for time off? Well, I created a free training. It's 10 minutes long and it's in the description of my video. If you always wanted to know how to make money online, well, now is a really good time to learn. Click the link in my description and put your name and email in and watch the free training. I drive a motorcycle. I'll be on one lane. The wind will push me to a whole nother lane. It gets very, very windy in Egypt, and it gets cold as well. So we need heaters and things like that. So with Egypt, though, like, I like the weather in Egypt because it does remind me a lot, besides the crazy, crazy winds, it does remind me a lot of where I grew up in Los Angeles. Pretty much the sun is almost always out. It does not rain in Egypt. In my 3 years of living there, it's rained twice. And one of the times it was hail come from the sky. So it doesn't rain very often. Outside of sandstorms, the like natural disasters that do occur in Egypt are earthquakes. I have experienced a few earthquakes since living in Egypt. So there was earthquakes in Los Angeles. And so the weather in Egypt really reminds me of the weather where I grew up in California. So that is kind of why I like Egypt's weather, because it's just so similar to what I'm used to. And it kind of, I don't know, I wouldn't say it brings that home feeling, but it just brings a certain extra layer of comfort to living in Egypt. Now, when it comes to, so that's personal to me, but when it comes to weather in Uganda, for example, all right, Uganda is all over the place, man. It's hot, but then at the same time, it's raining. Then at the same time, it's super raining. At the same time, it can be a sunny sky, and then you see thunder still coming down. The weather in Uganda is very much tropical, so it's not what I'm used to. And when it rains hard, it rains heavy, and it rains for a lot longer period of time. So like right now, I'm trying to film a video, but the rain is just pouring down right now as I'm trying to film. It's making the whole environment loud. The roofs are metal. They're made of like tinfoil, so sheet metal, not tinfoil, sheet metal. So I gotta postpone the filming. So these are some things you run into, man. So that's one of the things that I'm not necessarily used to, is so much rain. So, but the thing is, even when it does rain, it can still be warm. It usually still is warm. Sometimes it cools down a little bit, so you might want to throw on a sweater, throw on a little jacket, but nothing too crazy. Because it rains a lot, I believe this equates to having more mosquitoes. And mosquitoes and me are not amigos whatsoever. All right. When I get bit by a mosquito, I get swollen, like in the area where it bit me, and so I do not like mosquitoes. But there's a lot of them here because that tropical, humid, wet environment that just is a breeding ground for mosquitoes. In Egypt, they do have them, but it's a lot more rare. They spray as well for them, and I don't know. It's just, you don't really run into mosquitoes that often, so that's a blessing for me. But here there are a lot. I personally, I'm going to give the nod over to Egypt. All right, I'm gonna get a nod to Egypt. So the same reason why Egypt lost in scenery was because it's a desert. Is the reason why it wins in weather, because it's a desert. It's just the weather is more what I'm used to. Right. So third category that I'm gonna judge these places on is safety. All right. Safety. Like if you're going to move to a country, even if it's just you yourself and your man, you still care about safety, especially more so if you're coming with children, if you're coming with your wife, your girlfriend. You're going to want safety to be a priority in that country, right? And so let's compare Egypt and Uganda in terms of safety, all right? So when it comes to Egypt, I think it has a very large stereotype of being a racially discriminatory country. So you might feel like you might face a hate crime when you go to this country. I think that's how it's portrayed quite a lot online and in different black communities. It's portrayed as maybe a place where you might experience a hate crime, some type of racism, some type of discrimination. However, I do believe for the most part, there's also a fear of like being bombed or being subject to an attack by an Arabs and the Muslims and things like that. I think that's also a fear that people have associated with Egypt, right? And other than that, I don't believe like Egypt is like a country where people think, oh, you're going to starve to death. I don't think they think that as much. But I do believe there's like you might get attacked by Muslims, and then on top of that, you might experience a hate crime because they don't like blacks. Those are the two things that I would say you would expect to face. Now, the reality, though, is Egypt as a whole has a very high standard of living for the average Egyptian, right? The average Egyptian is walking around with a bankroll. Like when I go to the stores, they're pulling out bundles of cash. The ATMs, they're withdrawing massive amounts of cash from the ATMs. When they are spending, they're spending large. They're always buying new stuff. Like the standard of living in Egypt is very, very high compared to other African countries. And these are just regular Egyptians, not the rich Egyptians. I live in a very regular neighborhood in Egypt, so like an average neighborhood. And these average people are spending bankrolls in these stores. They're buying new TVs, new furniture. Most people you see own their flat that they live in. Like the average Egyptian is doing quite well, right? So overall, the standard of living is relatively high, and so I believe that automatically reduces crime significantly. And then with it being a very much Muslim country, people actually follow the laws of the Quran and things like that. It's not Sharia law, but they follow the laws of the country very, very much importantly because they have like doormen, like they have ways to keep the community and the community members accountable. And so crime is very much reduced, which is a big plus for me, right? So I'll say, for example, right, I can leave my keys in my motorcycle, which I've done many times in my neighborhood, and somebody will be like, oh, you forgot the keys in your bike, and bring them up to my apartment. Inside the city, I've done the exact same thing. In the city that I live in, left my key in my bike, been gone for hours, then forgot that I even forgot to take my key with me. I go there, my motorcycle's still there, everything is still there, inside my motorcycle ignition. Like nobody even tried to twist it and try to run off with it. No, it just left it, right? And so integrity is very high. Integrity is very, very high in Egypt, okay? I've had times where I left my phone places and be like, oh my God, I left my phone. I go back to working and took it, put it underneath the counter, waited for me to come back, hand me the phone and say, welcome to Egypt, right? And so the crime level is very low, I would say, in Egypt, especially if you're in the right neighborhoods and the right areas and you're just a good person, you're going to usually be okay in Egypt. So I have no fears of myself walking out late at night in Egypt, nor my sister walking out late at night in Egypt. If I had children, I let them walk out late at night in Egypt. Like Egypt as a whole is a very calm, safe country because of the things like I told you, like the doorman always watching out, knowing who's who and knowing who belongs here, who doesn't belong here. Egypt, word spreads very quickly, so people will know more about you than you'll know about them because they'll say, oh, these new Americans moved here and they do this and they make videos and da-da-da-da, and then word will spread and everybody knows who you are. You won't even know who they are, right? But that works in your favor a lot of times. And so, yeah, just crime as a whole reduced in Egypt, so I like it. Safe. Now, when we talk about Uganda, okay, Uganda, like, there's a perception of just all of, like, sub-Saharan Africa as starvation, disease, massive amounts of poverty, warlords going around, and children armies, and there's that perception with all sub-Saharan African countries, and that I would say Uganda is no exception to that rule. All right, now that may be what people perceive may happen. Scams. Africa is always often associated with scams as well. But here's the truth of what I've seen these last 2 months living in Uganda. Honesty is very high. This might very well be the most honest country I've ever been to. As in, the people are just honest, okay? And that makes life so much easier for you. Now, on the perception of crime, there is a vibe that crime is going to be raging on a lot higher here than Egypt. Locals do say, I even know locals who've had their phone snatched. And so phone snatching is something that's very high, very common. In Egypt, I can walk around my phone sky high, to the streets, behind my back, put it on, like I said, I leave it on the counter. I can leave it on the counter or place and then come back and it's still there, right? Or I can leave my keys on my bike and come back and it's still there. That level of what's that next man is that next man does not really, I don't believe exists here too much at the highest extent. I do believe, it makes me nervous to go out and film with my phone, to go out and film with my device, because I'm always afraid somebody's going to come back on a boat, on a motorcycle, and it's snatch and run off with it, and then it's like, my phone is gone, and then that's going to be an expensive day, right, to have to buy a whole new phone. And you don't want that to happen to yourself. And I also don't want that experience to mark the country for me. And so I do, it makes me be more cautious of my phone and want to grip it harder. And, somebody's coming, and you do have to live with that look over your shoulder mentality, right? The door behind me has so many locks, and this lock and this lock and that lock, and the windows have bars on it, and you feel like you need to lock up and be safe and be protected here a lot more than you do in the country of Egypt, okay? Right? Maybe you got to lock up because people are watching. They're always watching. They want to know when you, and so you just start to, in your mind, have those perceptions. And, like, I don't want to wear too many nice I would not want to wear a watch or jewelry or chain. I wouldn't want to wear that stuff here because I'm always concerned that somebody may be looking at me as a target. And that does run through my mind here than it doesn't in Egypt. And so I'm going to give the safety category over to Egypt. Okay, I'm going to give Egypt that safety category because I just feel 100% safe for myself, for women, for children. I just feel safe in Egypt. All right. Now, on the second point of things, though, what I do want to note is that just for all the Ugandans watching, I lost my phone in Uganda. Lost it on the road. Some kids picked it up. The day before I put a password on my phone, I'm so glad I did this. Some kids picked it up. We're calling the phone. The children end up bringing me the phone back. We just gave them the change that was in our pocket, and we got the phone back. And they didn't say, give me the money or we're not going to give you the phone, but they could have taken that phone, sold it for parts, or did whatever they wanted to do with it, and they brought it back to me. The same phone I'm filming this video on right now. And so I'm not going to say Ugandans don't have integrity, don't have honesty, because they do. They brought the phone back, right? Which is awesome. And I think a lot of that has to do with just being, I think, a good person, is being kind and putting the right energy out there. You're going to reap what you sow. And so I try to be nice to people and kind to people. If somebody lost their phone, I would do my best to bring it back to them, right? Or assist them in a way that was righteous, in the way that I believe was righteous. And so, yeah, Ugandans are very honest people, but there is a larger perception of you could get targeted here because the standard of living is nowhere near as high as it is in Egypt. So Egypt gets that category. Food, all right? We'll keep this one short. I don't want this video to be too long, but next category we got is food. When it comes to Egypt, let's just be real. Egyptians are Egyptians, falafel, hummus, stuff like that, good. But for some reason, Egyptian food is not the best. Okay? The local foods are not the best. I would never tell somebody who's a quote-unquote foodie, you gotta come to Egypt to eat. No. Okay? It's just not hitting on a high level. Then, the thing that I don't really vibe with about Egypt is it's such an international country, but they don't have a Chinese restaurant and then all Chinese people work there. No. They don't have an Indian restaurant and all Indian people work there. No. And so you're getting food, you may get an Indian restaurant, but then it's served to you by an Egyptian, right? Now, it's not a problem, but it's not going to hit the same, right? When I went to Thailand, it's an Indian man making my Indian food. It's a Thai man making my Thai food. And so maybe it just makes it feel better. I don't know. Maybe the genetics come into the food. I don't know. But it's not the same. And so the Egyptian food is okay. And then the international food that they have is usually not made by the international person. So it doesn't hit the same. And so Egypt is not a food destination. And, it's fine though. Now, the fruits and vegetable selection as well is not that great because Egypt is, for the most part, a desert. They do have green parts. Don't get me mistaken, they have green parts. But the fruits selection and the vegetable selection is not hitting the same way fruits and vegetables hit in sub-Saharan. Okay? So, that's that. Now, when it comes to Uganda, oh man, Uganda is food heaven, okay? Because of the rain, because of the topography, because of the landscaping, because of how rural it is, you just have amazing selections of fruits, an amazing selection of vegetables, amazing selections of meats and dairy products if you're into those things, right? Just an amazing selection of food in general because of how natural this land is. And because also we are a melanated people here in Uganda, the food is very well seasoned. The food is made with love, it's made with passion, you know what I mean? And it's beautiful. And so Ugandan food as a whole, as the local foods, amazing. The selection of fruits and vegetables, amazing. I have not gone and eaten too much international foods, but I know there's a large Indian community and a large Asian community here, and so I would assume that the Indian spots and the Asian spots are hitting the way they're supposed to hit, but I don't know. I haven't been there yet. I do want to take Sheena, if you guys don't know Sheena, I want to take her to an Indian restaurant because I love Indian food and she's never had it before, and that might be something that I want to do before I leave the country. So you should be expecting that. Maybe as a video, maybe it may just be something that I'll try to get some clips for you guys, at least for things to insert into videos. All right, but the food in Uganda is amazing. I'm going to give that round to Uganda. Nobody's touching Ugandan food right now, as far as in comparison to Egypt. If you're looking to move to a country, you need to be pleasantly entertained, right? And so entertainment is another category that's big, and it might just be you yourself. It might be you and your family, and you want to have options that's going to entertain you and those who you're bringing with you when you're relocating, right? And so when it comes to Egypt, Egypt has a very large, because the standard of living is so high, people can afford to think about entertainment. You got to remember like the hierarchy of need. Okay, like if you're not even getting food and water, if you don't even have a place to stay, you're not worried about going bowling, right? And so it's about the hierarchy of need. And so because most people in Egypt already have the basics need, they got the food, they got the water, they got the shelter, they got all that sorted. And it's like, okay, well, what's next on hierarchy? Oh, entertainment, right? At some point, entertainment comes in there, and so because of that, they have a lot more entertainment options. And because there's a lot more entertainment options, that also means the entertainment is cheaper because there's so much to do, right? So you have movies and bowling alleys and malls and ice skating and arcades, and you have all these things in galore. Go-karting, you have all these things in galore. That's why they don't even cost that much to do because there's so much of them. You have also of entertainment, you have all the historical sites, all the museums, you have you can go and use the natural resources like swimming in the ocean, then in the scuba diving and snorkeling, and you have all these different things you can do in Egypt. Egypt is a huge country with a lot of natural resources, and then a lot of man-made things as well on top of that. And so, man, oh man, there's a lot to do in Egypt. Okay, a lot to do in Egypt. Regardless of what floats your boat, there's something that will make you happy in the country of Egypt as far as entertainment goes, and it will be very affordable. So then you have on the opposite side, Uganda, where maybe not everybody's hitting the hierarchy of need. Maybe they're just scratching it. Maybe they're just getting enough of it to where entertainment is not the highest priority for them, right? So they don't have as many entertainment options. And because they don't have as many, those who are providing entertainment, they're providing it for a small group of people. Therefore, they have to charge more money to make it worth it for them. And so entertainment here is far more expensive, right? There's not as many options. Okay, to go bowling, you're going to spend $100 here. I want to take someone bowling. You're going to spend $100 to go bowling. In Egypt, I spend 100 pounds, which is like $4, $3 to go bowling for a single person. So instead of spending $6 for two people, you're spending $100+ to go bowling, right? That's like, it's crazy. So it's about availability of things. And so because of that, I cannot give this category to Uganda. I got to give it to Egypt, right? Because yes, you have the natural things to do in Egypt. You have the parasailing, and you have the snorkeling and the diving, and you have the hot air ballooning, and you have the tours of the different places and cruises down the Nile River. So you got the natural side. Then of course you have the man-made, the bowling, the movie theater, the go-karting, all those different things. You have those there as well. There's even just walking around the mall is entertainment in itself. And so then you have that. In Uganda, I think you're less limited. You have the movies, which is very affordable. The movies is cool. And then you have the natural things, which is like going to see the gorillas and the giraffes and things like that. But that's not something you can just get up and go do every day. That's something you have to more so plan out and schedule. And is it going to rain today? And it's not just a pop. I'm bored. Let's do something fun. Uganda doesn't really have too much motion like that. If you want to have fun, you kind of got to make your fun. And sometimes you got to pay a price. You got to pay a high price for the entertainment too. So be aware of that. Be mindful of that. But all in all, when you tally it all up, I believe Uganda got 2 points. Egypt got 3. So Egypt edges it out. I think Egypt is a better country to live in long term, regardless of if you're single, couple, or family. You got to give and take with any location you go to. I have a ton of videos on my page about Uganda and about Egypt. Check all those videos out, the countries that interest you. I even have videos from other countries that I've been in as well, so check those out. And leave a like on today's video if you enjoyed it and if you learned something new. Other than that, I'll see you guys in the next one. Y'all willing. Shalom.